Now, every single Arsenal fan wants at least one more player to come in this summer. Now, there's a lot of fans that want Eberechi Eze to come in, who has been the #1 target. But recent reports suggest that Xavi Simons could be a great market opportunity to come in to offer something different for the club. Now, in this video, we're going to look at exactly how he would fit into this Arsenal team if he was to join, and if he should be signed over Eze in a tough decision the club has to make. So let's get into it. Now, Xavi Simons is a player that we have spoken about before years ago and has finally now come up again for Arsenal, with a lot of reports suggesting that you could get him for around 55 million euros with some add-ons added to the deal, and with him being on a reasonable wage, being around 200k a week or even less, which would make clubs very interested if he was to join for that weekly wage. Now, Xavi Simons is a player that has always been good and always been touted to be a prodigy since young, and over the last couple of years has proved that at the top level, even if he hasn't had the most experience at the age of 22. Probably one of the best players to be in the PSG academy, obviously formerly of La Masia, and he was never really given an opportunity for PSG. They sent him to PSV, where he became an absolute dominant player, being the top goal scorer and top assister in just 1 year in professional football in the Eredivisie, and then eventually was sent out to Leipzig, where he has a great goal return overall, and even in an underperforming side showed a lot of promise last season. Now, when you look at Xavi Simons' overall stats from FBref, from attacking midfielders and wingers, there's nothing that really stands out to you. He clearly does a lot of good creative work and is able to find great areas to get high non-penalty goals, but he's not someone that is really on the ball too much in terms of carries or take-ons, going past players consistently, and is that more passery type of player, but also having decent defensive numbers in there as well. Now, when I look at Xavi Simons, there's a lot of things I have questions on, and one of them is what is actually his best role. For Leipzig, he has played this more counter-attacking style over the last year, where they don't command possession with their midfielders in the game. They kind of wait for teams to go at them, and then they break quickly, having some of their players come deeper and players run off him. Now, Xavi Simons isn't someone that is going to be running off of players. He is that real natural first phase passer that will probably send teams through on the counter-attack. Imagine a bit like Odegaard when Arsenal counter-attack very quickly. Now, Xavi Simons overall, I think his passing is definitely his best attribute, and you can see he makes a lot of passes per game, which I definitely think backs that up. He is someone that is very good at controlling tempo and knowing when to go into a quick action and get the team up the pitch, or be very slow and calm things down, but he's also someone that will take a lot of risks. This is probably why his completion is low as well, but he'll be in these really tight areas in the midfield, and he'll still be trying to slip balls through into players who have players around them as well. This can be very good because it is something that Arsenal simply don't have enough risk takers within that team, and also he is a very good passer, especially on his right foot. Most importantly, on his left he is a little bit inconsistent and won't really go for that pass if he has to, but he has this sort of Trivela pass technique on his right foot that he loves doing, and nearly every single pass that Xavi Simons does is about 1 yard in front of a player so they can run onto it, which is really good for teams going up the pitch quickly and wanting to complete that action quickly as well. Not really a ball to feet sort of person in the passing sense. Now, when he operates in the team for Leipzig, he mostly operates in this sort of left half channel, which you get to see a lot of players really do. Now, the weird thing about Xavi Simons is that he is really an attacking midfielder by trade and isn't really brilliant in other positions, despite being quite versatile and playing in a lot of positions throughout his career. Now, he can easily contribute in left wing or even right wing, or even in other midfield positions. Maybe a little bit deeper would probably be the best. And I think as an advanced 8/10, it is probably the role that you're going to see from him. I wouldn't expect Arsenal would play him out on the left, because he is so catered towards coming inside more than other players that he really just does not like the angles out wide. Now, he does most of his best work in this left half channel or in the central areas, but there is a certain amount of times where he comes down to the right when he is allowed to roam, and he can easily slip through balls. I really think he's the most effective when he's just outside the edge of the box, because not only can he slip balls through and he's got that risk and reward about him which you need in the final third to create, but he's also a very good player at shooting. Now, last season he only had 2 shots per 90, which was a low for him, but it was also a low for the team. Their team barely did shoot as much as they would like to. And Xavi Simons, when he cuts in on this right foot, more importantly off the left from just outside the box, has this really good effort. He gets a lot of power on his shots, and he can smash a ball across goal very well. I think when it comes to a curl technique, he is good, but maybe a little bit inconsistent, and some of his special goals will be the sort of curling technique in the top corner, but he tries that a lot and it doesn't really come off. But ultimately, he's able to get a lot of backlift on the ball even when it's not got a lot of movement on it, which is very good to be able to get them quick snapshots away from just outside the box, which you want from an attacking midfielder. Now, in terms of Arsenal definitely prioritise a person that shoots from outside the box and is very good at it. You see with a lot of the setups that we have where Odegaard will come into that space later and it kind of be a bit of a dummy run, but even Rice has done it before and Partey last season, where they will have the space to shoot very quickly. Now, obviously Odegaard didn't have the best shooting range last year, and we all know that, but hopefully he can improve that this year. But that was mostly coming in from this right side into the middle, while Xavi would be from the left side into the middle if Saka did that pullback there. Now, this could work, and this is definitely something Arsenal will look at, but he will have to get a little bit more consistent with his shooting. Sometimes finding that connection between power and precision is something that he misses, and he sometimes has one or the other, and mostly it's precision, but not necessarily the power to come with it, even though some of his goals are amazing when he gets both of them working together. Now, I also think another thing that is going to benefit Arsenal a lot if they were to get him in is the fact he is a very brave dribbler as well. Now, he doesn't have a lot of carries when you look at the statistics, but when you watch him, you can kind of see he has a little bit of a good carrying level. He's not someone that is going to necessarily be a power runner, and I think when it comes down to pace is one of the most important things with Xavi. He doesn't necessarily have that top-end sprint speed that you're going to see other players have, which is one of the reasons he probably won't work well out wide. I say that because he is a really good dribbler in these tight areas and can go past players with a nifty amount of agility. He's only 5'7", he is small, so he can get past players quite well, but then he often gets caught up quite easily by the same players, which will go and then try and tackle him, and he'll have to take them on again. Now, this is fine in midfield positions because given enough space and given enough runners around him, you would expect that he could go past the player and then quickly shift that ball through, which wouldn't be that big of an issue when a team is moving quickly. Now, out wide, this can be a problem. You're not going to necessarily get the right execution of runners in the middle and the right things going on for you to always work when you go past one player. We see this a lot with like Doku for Man City, where he'll go past one player and then wait for options to be there and then go past him again when he comes back at them. And Xavi Simons just doesn't have the pace to considerably take past these players in wide positions consistently, especially on the break. So I do think that is an important part there. But one thing that Arsenal do need is dribblers, especially in central areas and also out wide. But obviously with Madueke, he is probably that more out wide dribbler that you will see. Now, Xavi Simons can do this in great ways. I think with his little dribbling in tight areas is exactly what they need, and his agility is something they are missing. He isn't going to be that strong guy that can hold off players brilliantly well, and he can hold off players sometimes quite well in the Bundesliga, but in the Prem it's going to be a lot different given his stature and his height. I do think that is something he will struggle with, but he can still turn them because his technical ability is so high. And we've seen Arsenal go for these sort of hybrid players of physical attributes and technical, while you can argue that their technical abilities probably isn't as good as it can be because they are so big physically. Someone like Marino comes to mind for that reason. But Xavi Simons is that different profile that they just don't have, that more technical, agile, small player who can take players on and go past these sort of tight areas. And I do think his take-ons and other statistics will go up given the more of the ball he has. Now, he also is a very good player that works well defensively. I think that his pressing is actually very good. He works really well at tracking players, but because of that physicality and that height for Arsenal, you would probably want him to be a bit more out wide if you're talking out possession. This would work with maybe a winger like Martinelli or whoever Arsenal want to sign there if they're coming more into that inside area and can press really well, and they can kind of operate that central areas a little bit more, while you can have Xavi Simons out wide, so if you win the ball back, he can pick the ball up and shift back into the middle. This would obviously have to be quite a lot of adaptation, and I actually think overall Xavi Simons in this Arsenal team would take quite a lot of time to work, given the fact he's played for highly attacking teams and counter-attacking teams for most of his career, and we are just not that. And I also think his role position-wise is just quite weird to fit. He's more of an 8/10 that can't really play out wide, but will have to do that out of possession, and then it's where does he fit into the team? I can't really see a Xavi and Odegaard midfield working, and he's not going to play a lot with Rice in that situation. Now, ultimately, Eze would make more sense given the dynamics of the team and is a little bit more plug and play. But Eze obviously is going to cost a lot more money, we think, maybe on wages or at least on value-wise right now given the market. And he's also 5 years older, so there's definitely a way you can develop Xavi Simons that you probably can't with Eze, where he is the player that needs to come in and perform right now. And Xavi Simons might not be the player that makes the perfect sense for the team's construction, but he might be that market opportunity. And I do think for about £45 million, if that is the fee you can get him for, which we still don't don't know because we know what Leipzig can be like, I think it's a good value, and I do think it is something that Arsenal will look at, considering he has the same agent as a Madueke, who has apparently been offered to us, so I'm sure Arsenal have always had him on the list in many ways. And last but not least, what probably is most important about some of these players that we're talking about is they do bring a bit of fun. Arsenal need more risk takers, more fun within the team, and I think Xavi Simons will always put on a show for someone and still perform well. Is he going to be that best player in the world right now? No, and when he was a lot cheaper, when he was at PSV, it made a lot more sense to get him, but obviously PSG bought him back. And now with his price being 40 to 50 mil, him being 22, it is a much bigger risk than what it would have been a couple of years ago when we really liked this player. And also I think his versatility has probably differed a little bit from what I thought it was a few years ago. But ultimately, I wouldn't mind Xavi Simons as a player. I think Arsenal just need to stack talent. If it's Xavi, if it's Eze, we have to get one of these players in, even if it's a Rodrigo. One of these three, in my opinion, has to come in alongside a Woklz and Madueke, and that is enough for the team to at least go into the Premier League season being confident that we can do something much more than we could last year. And sometimes it's all about just getting quality players that offer something different, and I do think he gets that. But in the comments, let me know what you guys think about Xavi Simons overall. Would you prefer him over an Eze or not? And if you like this video, please let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.